To our presenters and welcome to those who are joining us. My name is Kevin. I work for the Regional Consortium and I will be your room host today. So we just wanted to provide a quick reminder. The chat in the actual Zoom meeting has been disabled. So if you have any comments or questions for the presenters, please make sure that you share those in the chat section on the Whova platform. So with that, we will go ahead and turn the time over to our presenters.
Thank you. My name is Madalyn Brion-Reed. I am one of the counselors at Cajon Valley Union School District. I am currently at Flying Hills and Bostonia Global High School. I would go ahead and have my co-presenters introduce themselves.
I'm Melanie Brandt. I'm a World of Work program specialist at the Cajon Valley School District.
And I'm Janet Gilbert. I'm a school counselor at Fuerte Elementary School this year.
So today we will be presenting how to use student strengths, interests, and values to begin a new conversation. In today's presentation, participants will learn how to use student strengths, interests, and values to begin a new conversation with them on how to approach their education and life. By using the students' RIASEC letters, we will highlight some occupational options and help, sorry, a second, I lost my place, and help them to reframe their thinking into a growth mindset, no longer focusing on, hold on a second, no longer focusing on, no longer focusing on academic reviews. The mind shift will be on students connecting their education with future careers by utilizing the World of Work curriculum. This training was created for elementary and middle school counselors, as well as educators, but all are welcome to attend.
So the framework we're going to be talking about today is the RIASEC. And I know many times counselors have exposure to the RIASEC through their schooling, becoming a counselor, and even maybe with some of your students. So we just want to kind of know who we have today joining us, name kind of your position in district, or if you're from the business world, company, and then the level of RIASEC knowledge. Are you a 1, you never really heard of it? 2, you've heard about it. 3, you've heard about it, but you also know what your RIASEC code is. And 4, you integrate it into your practice. Just kind of seeing who we have. Typically, we're kind of in the 2 and 3. So today, we will kind of cover how in your practice you can implement the RIASEC and use it with your students when you have, whether it's a one-on-one conversation or small group, or even if you go in and push into classrooms to do lessons. We will have some materials and resources. The slideshow is in the materials shared on the platform when you signed up. So this is there with all the live links from some of the materials. So please feel free to use what we have. And really, if you can get it right away, you can use it right away in your practice. So we hope that works with you. Okay, so we have some those they know your RIASEC, and some of the 2s heard about it. So that's exactly where we want to be. So here we go. Just a little thing to get us going, taken from some sort of career development article, that all children are special and have unique strengths, interests, and values that are needed in the world. And the earlier they understand those, the better. And us adults in their lives, that's who needs to be encouraging the process. And so we really want our students to understand what their unique talents and strengths are, what are their interests that drive kind of they lose track of time doing, and what they're interested in, and really what are those school place for now values, or in the future, what are those workplace values? So we want that strength-based lens versus deficit coming out of our students. And the World of Work curriculum is something that is actually integrated in the classroom with the teachers and supported by counselors. But we're going to give you some materials that you could use, whether you have the World of Work curriculum or not, but we just want to know, and we want to share that this could be used for all students, and we would want them doing that wherever they're at. So focusing on those strengths, interests, and values. And this is just a quick little activity here, talking about strengths, interests, and values, and then job awareness. These are some cards in the program, but there's also a link to just the PDF that has some of the questions, just to get students focused on, you know, what is a strength type question I can answer, interests, values, and then the job awareness. Many times I know when we have our small group circles or our class meetings, and you always want to kind of ask kids, you know, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? And then after a while, we kind of run out of ideas on what to ask our students. So if we start looking at, you know, what are strengths do you appreciate in others? What do people do that you appreciate? Or maybe what do other people tell you you're good at? Because many times it's hard for us to talk about ourselves and what we're good at, but what do people share with you? So if you could take a moment and just kind of choose one of those. You know, is it a strength question you want to answer? You want to share with us where is an interesting place you visited, when something's wrong, how did you fix it? Anything like those, if you just want to share real quick in the chat, what is one of those questions you would like to answer? Get to know each other a little bit through a different type of lens. Appreciating empathy, absolutely. I know many of us have been tied down home and haven't really been able to travel, but maybe prior to our pandemic, where did you like to travel? Or maybe in the future want to travel? I know most interesting place I've ever visited, the only time I went out of the country was Ireland. So just a good way to get students thinking differently is asking them questions through this strengths, interests, values lens. All right, thanks for sharing. Okay, and one thing we like to do is that career development is a human process, meaning that teachers can have conversations with students, the counselor, anybody that's an adult in their lives, but even a coach, staff at the school sites, really understanding that process and learning about what are the students' RIASECs, what are the students' interests and strengths, and then having conversations when we see just a hint of maybe something that they're interested in. But it is about having a conversation. We can give a student any type of assessment and test, and there are RIASEC assessments that you can give, but really taking it and having a conversation and that human process is what really makes it go a little deeper and really has the students understanding what it means when you have your realistic, conventional, social type of person and those traits. So we'll get into a little more of that. But again, it's a human process, and we're focusing on counselor supporting, but it can be done in classroom settings as well. And we know that, you know, the world of work in general is changing. We know that there's jobs that aren't even created yet in the future. There's many careers today that perhaps weren't around when we were younger. And so if our students understand who they are and that self-awareness, then whatever comes and whatever kind of careers are out there in the future, they can kind of navigate by knowing their strengths, interests, values, that there's something that they can find that really brings that career well-being and happiness to their lives. So we want to give them those skills, not to choose a career now and say, okay, I want to be a mechanic, I want to be a doctor, but when in the future, what can I look at and identify with myself that connects best with me? And then we want them to be able to see their possible selves out there. And I'm a former classroom teacher. I spent most of my career in special education, and my last few years in the classroom, I did teach fourth grade. And my last year, I took the fourth grade class that you see here on the left, and we started to integrate the RIASEC framework. And the students claimed their RIASEC codes, understood what are my interests, what are my codes, and what does that mean? And it also transformed that they knew each other better. They knew that, you know, my friend is more enterprising. They like to talk a little bit more realistic, hands-on, conventional, into computers. So they really changed their community with one another. And the young man here it was a computer science magnet school. So we had Minecraft education we integrated, and he Minecraft created the WoW there on his computer. And the young man, prior to coming to 4th grade, had about 13 suspensions that I saw in his cum on the last day of school of 4th grade when I was filing. I wasn't aware of that because he had a wonderful school year with the same peers he's had all his school career, but something had changed in the students. Their outlook of looking at strengths versus deficits and understanding each other on more of a positive way really changed, like I said, how the classroom dynamics was. And that, leaving the classroom, I didn't think I would do, but I was able to step into this position to help, that spirit influence other schools and other teachers, which impacts more students. I still keep in contact. They're now all 8th graders. You'll see a couple little stories later with them, but they were a wonderful group that really opened my eyes to that strengths-based lens, and kind of fulfilled that year, and they're doing great to this day from what I hear.
So as you know, or if you don't know, the student to counselor ratio is really not very good in California. We, especially ever since the pandemic, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I feel like I'm doing a lot of reactive counseling instead of proactive counseling this year, just because we have gone through a traumatic event together as a society. And so I feel like I'm doing just a lot of reactive counseling. So even though my caseload is still large, I feel like I'm not really doing it justice. And part of our standards as a counselor is to do career development. So what do we do over in our district? Who are our career choice coaches? In our district, anyone can be a leader at our site. So we ask the teachers from preschool to 8th grade. We have the local high school district, which is Grossmont. We have our counselors, our special ed classes, our elective classes. We have a group called Family Engagement Office. And so we have our parents and our grandparents help support us in career development. Our library, so if you see the picture on the left, that is a former library, but it's now a career development center at Cajon Valley Middle School. Librarians are getting involved and becoming locations that host the Meet a Pro, and they organize their books by RIASEC with the San Diego Workforce Partnership. We've also, We've also created a career development launchpad for students and families to access tools and resources for career exploration. So you see the picture on the right, those are a bunch of different career coaches that our students have access to. So all it is really exposing our students to different possible careers. And so now our job as counselors, we can shift it over, the career development piece over to other people so that we can do this work and show every student the connection between career and school.
Some of our work is grounded in some of the career research. There's just some blurbs here. You can definitely go further and read on these later. But the main points is that interests, that kind of predicts that employment outcome. If you do something that fits you, if your interest, it's going to be better outcomes for job satisfaction. Parent or family involvement is very important as well. And that's where we like to train and empower our parents to be. You are the child's first career coach. You have them from a little tyke, and you see those hints of interests and strengths, and to really support that and empower them to take that to looking at their future is really important. So that parent and family involvement is key. And then career exposures and talks. Because we have an unpredictable future with careers, we don't know what is out there. There's many that don't exist. Students can meet, and we encourage, there is the traditional career day, But with the Zoom technology, we also can Zoom with professionals a lot better and a lot easier. And they can actually take them out to their workplace and talk with the students and show. Many times students think, I really want to do a certain career. They meet the person, they see what it's like, and then they might decide, you know what, that's really not for me, which that's just as powerful as wanting to be something because you're interested in something you want to do. But we also want them to understand, you know what, that didn't really fit me. I really don't care to work outside. It's really warm here in the summer. I thought I wanted to be a carpenter, but that's really not for me at this time. So really getting that career exposure and talks is a really key component. Inviting parents that maybe you have in the community to really come in and speak with students becomes a really important piece as well. So let's look on that. So again, we asked this question, you know, how does a child aspire to a career they don't know exists? Children typically know what they see and what they're exposed to. So we know as children go to school every day, you ask a child what they want to be when they grow up, they might answer such as teacher, doctor, dentist, professional athletes. Currently, we get a lot of, they want to be YouTubers, influencers, video game designers. Those are things that they're familiar with. And then the people, firefighters, paramedics, and police officers is what they see. So it's what they know and what they aspire to be. But through exposure of other types of careers based on strengths, interests, and values, they can aspire to things that are maybe different that they didn't know exist. And through our program, you can see here a variety of different careers that are out there. And each of our students go through in the classroom, integrated in their academics. They do one from each RIASEC code a year. So they do 6, we call career simulations. So they actually try these on. They go through a simulation and practice what it would be like to be these types of careers. And you can see some very unique ones based on ONET, the ONET online data that are Bright Outlook careers here in Southern California, mostly in our region. They took those and kind of aligned them to the RIASEC platform here, framework. And so the students put them on. Like I said, I taught 4th grade, and here we were, 9 and 10-year-olds, 4th grade, becoming geographers, marketing managers, park naturalists. And it really gave time for students to, again, have that dramatic play. And for a 4th grader to be able to come to school and get into pretend play was really a unique experience. And coming from a teacher's lens, and I kind of would step into that role too of pretend playing with them. Okay, you've joined the Acme engineering company, you've been hired, I'm your boss. And they really, it really engaged their learning. And if you really take a look at all the different careers here, there's a very variety of post-12th grade directions and outcomes. It's not just college for all. 4-year college is the result. You have to get a master's, doctorate, but you can see that there's high school diploma only careers where you might get on the job training and certifications. There's AA degree careers on here, bachelor's degrees, and yes, masters and PhDs as well as the trades. So we really ground in the concept too, that there's dignity in all work and all work matters. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing something you love and enjoy, that you are going to have more career satisfaction and you will make a better money in living because you have fulfillment and happiness. So we really ground on that dignity in all work and persuade. There's trades, great careers in trades. And yes, many of our careers, there are needing a 4-year degree. So of course, college is also encouraged, as well as we need people, students to pursue the military. And we want students who really feel I'm a great fit for the military to go and pursue that dream and protect our country because they really enjoy that. Not, I went into the military because I had no other choice, but I went in it because it fits my strengths, interests, and values. So really that dignity in all work is a really key component to encourage our children that they really can pursue something based on their individuality. We use the RIASEC framework in the interest component, but we have this self-awareness, and that's where we want the students to understand who they are and what do they want to do. And we have that strengths. We introduce them to what that means. The strengths is those natural talents. What do you naturally do talent-wise? Some of us, you can strike up conversations. Some people are great at math. Some people are talented in athletics. And if we take those talents and we understand those strengths, we want our students to keep building on those and not look at their weaknesses and their deficits, but how can we keep going and empowering you to continue to build on those strengths? The interest component is the RIASEC. What is your passion? What do you lose track time doing? What really gets you up and motivated? So that's the interest piece, and they can do that a few different ways to understand what their RIASEC codes are. And that workplace values, that values part is really what gets you up and come to work. What do you really want to do when you get to work, and how do you feel in that workplace? Do you like to work in an office, or do you prefer to work at home? Are you an outdoor type of career minded, or do you want to work indoor? So having the students understand, that is an important aspect of it, is that values piece as well. So
Melanie,
we really ground on this self-awareness, strengths, interests, and values.
Melanie, there's a question in the chat. Sophia is wondering if you can explain how you simulated the different careers for students.
Yes, so when the program is part of the teacher's academic, I'll go back to that. There are, I integrated it with my curriculum. So for example, we learned all about, I was 4th grade, so we learned about the regions of California through social studies. And that learning, what are the regions? What does that mean? We learned about coasts, mountains, deserts, etc. We had all the content area, and then that transferred into, we became the geographers. And the program has pre-designed simulations of, like, there's an essential question, here's what you have to learn, here's the outcome, and then materials that go with it for the students to do. So teachers can naturally integrate it how they see fit. We also did the park naturals after learning about rocks and minerals. So it really is integrated, but there's pre-designed materials for teachers to use for all of these as part of the curriculum. Okay. And I can always, if you email me on the site, I can always share like a sample so you can get a better idea of what that looks like.
Awesome.
So again,
thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We ground in the Holland RIASEC, and many of us might have heard of this. Some of us even know what our RIASEC codes are. And of course, this is not something we created and we came up with. It's the most widely measured vocational topology out there, but created by John Holland and researched by him. So we want our students to understand and claim what we say their top 3 RIASEC codes. And also understanding it's going to change as they grow and experience different things in life, they're going to change. And so all of our students learn about their RIASEC. And if you ask one of our students in our schools, what's your RIASEC code, they're going to let you know. Like if somebody asks me, I'm going to say I'm SRC. So I'm a social, realistic, conventional person. Those are my 3 RIASEC. Social helper, meaning like I like to care and help others, not so much social as in social butterfly, but a helper. Realistic is that hands-on, so hands-on doing, working perhaps with athletics, with your hands outdoors, so you're thinking kind of the construction fields. I claim that through, I like sports and doing camping for my hobbies. Investigative thinkers, so you're thinking problem solvers using math and science. Artistic creators, not just doing art and painting and drawing, but also that's anything using that self-expression through music, arts, writing, all that sorts of thing, anything using creativity. Again, many of us here today are probably social in some way, whether it's your 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, because that's where we like to help others. Our enterprising, those are our speakers, those business owners, entrepreneurs, risk takers, people that are going to own your businesses, maybe your politicians, your superintendents, you're kind of the leaders of the schools and your businesses. Those are enterprising persuaders. Conventional, those are organizers. They're really efficient, accurate, types of learners and types of people. So really following set schedules, wanting to know I get my break at a certain time, I go to lunch, I get off at this, and really consistent and predictable. Okay, that's just a quick overview. This is one of my students I had in 4th grade. She claimed her RIASEC back then. She's like a 9-year-old. She was social, enterprising, artistic. And just a few weeks ago, I ran into her as an 8th grader. And of course, you know, being in my role, we kind of started talking about world of work and RIASEC. She was working on a project. I said, well, what are your RIASEC codes now? And she said, today I'm SAR. So then I talked a little more about how did R come in and E kind of dropped off. And she said, well, I learned that I want to be a veterinarian. It's more hands-on. I've had some experiences. And so that kind of, as she grew, she learned a little more interest in that realistic. So even being able to, I don't want to say track a student, but follow up 4 years later, she still knows the language. She still understands and was able to articulate kind of how things have changed. And she still has that future of being a kind of a veterinarian. She knows she doesn't really like working with people, she said, but animals all day long. So she has that understanding of who she is and what she wants to do. So it's really kind of a fun moment running into her as an 8th grader. So if we're not familiar what the RIASEC is and kind of how it can be done, here's some traits and some characteristics of it, just a real snapshot, kind of talk through it on the other slide, but you can kind of see, and we want our students to understand what it means to be a realistic, not just, oh, I'm R because the computer gave me a printout and said I'm realistic, investigative, artistic, but why is that, and to speak to it. We have our social helpers and enterprising persuaders and our conventional organizers. So we go through with our students. We have different ways because you're thinking, okay, kindergartners, primary, 1st, 2nd graders, whether there was an assessment or not, they can't really take that. It's hard for them to do that sort of assessments. So we do what's called hands-on exploration. So we go through and speak about each one. We show them some pictures, some slides. University of Buffalo created these beautiful 1-minute videos where the narrator talks about each of the RIASEC codes and an artist draws this picture. At the end, it ends up being these beautiful pictures. They were created way before our program started. They're on YouTube. You look up University of Buffalo RIASEC videos. We often show these to students and then just have them kind of reflect, like what stood out to you? What did you hear that sounds like you? Anything, words or pictures. And as they go through and watch all of these videos, they start to see which top 3 did they really connect with. So that's how we use it first. And even with our students who can take an assessment, we have them watch these and go through and have that conversation so they understand all the traits and characteristics of each one. Hands-on, like I was saying, for our youngest, but even we've done these middle school, high school adult learners also like to do these activities. So these can be done, each of these activities, and we have some samples and ideas for you connected. They all connect to what the traits and characteristics. So you have a prompt, realistic, has the Legos there. They have to build a shelter to protect animals. So it's all about hands-on problem solving. You see the investigative has to do some puzzles. Artistic, they kind of have to create something. The social helpers have to work together to build a strong bridge. So it's some STEM and some SEL stuff kind of connected as well. Enterprising persuaders have to take one of those pictures, persuade the group why it's the best place to visit. You have little microphones there. A lot of the stuff's dollar store, relatively inexpensive materials. Conventional organizers, there's a mess of objects there. They have to find a way to organize it. So that's how we get these for our younger students, especially. Which one was your favorite and why? Which one was your next favorite and your third favorite? So again, getting them used to the language and understanding what they liked to do.
Melanie, we have a request for you to possibly repeat that website again. And then also along the same lines, wondering if there are any recommendations of free resources that might work best for middle school students.
Yes, so the videos or the University of Buffalo RIASEC videos. So you just kind of Google that. And then you see the middle schoolers here doing the actual hands-on, we changed a little. We brought out microscopes and we changed the activities. But also this very next page here, this is a middle high school. And even I've done it in as young as 5th grade. It's a whole packet of ideas. And this is ideas for you to do with more of the older students. So you can see this conventional one, for example, it's origami. So you either buy the origami paper or you can cut your regular paper to make it or a perfect square. What I like about this packet is it talks about, you know, what are the directions, but why is it conventional or why is it social? So these is a really good activities for your middle school students. These take about 15-20 minutes per activity because you really want them thinking about it. There's some reflections they can do, some conversations that they can talk about for each one. So when I've gone into classrooms to do these activities, I usually takes me a couple class periods. I'll go and do 3 one day and 3 another day if I have like a 50 to 60 minute block. But these are some good activities. These two are little to no expense as well because the activities are in the packet. And then you just probably have to buy some marshmallows and toothpicks and some origami paper. Everything else is included in there that's really easy for teachers to use. So this is a good way to get the hands-on for your middle school, high school, and even adult learners if you do parent sessions. And like I said, I've done it as low as 5th grade and they were able to do it and they did just fine. Okay. And then some other resources there, hands-on exploration, there's some elementary ideas, some more that I showed you, but also there, but some can be used for middle school, and then that exploration packet. There's some slides there that has all the videos and information for all the RIASEC codes. So if you could see that, it's easier for you. I just showed you one example, but there's a whole bunch there. And then there are inventories. The University of Hawaii, the ONET Interest Profiler, and the San Diego Workforce Partnership, those all have some sort of a RIASEC assessment that students can take. We encourage you to have the hands-on and kind of walk them through the informational slides and they understand the traits and characteristics first before taking the interest profiler or taking these inventories so that they understand what the results mean. And then they can do a comparison. What did I claim to what did the scientific inventory tell me? At the end, we empower them to you choose what you think your RIASEC codes is. You know who you are best, okay? So there's some resources there that kind of can do there. And just some more information, you know, there's strong predictors of education and career satisfaction. The ONET Online is a great resource. It has information for all different types of careers, and it mentions some of the RIASEC, what the RIASEC is for those, as well as Ohio State, Oklahoma, and some other big universities have started aligning their majors by the RIASEC. So again, there's relevance and connection for our students. Like, why do I have to know this? Well, actually, in the future, you can use it as a way, maybe you're finding a new job or perhaps even to claim a major. So those are some connections and some relevance for our middle or high school students.
So strengths is the next thing that we focus on. They're a way for us to create a common language describing how we do what we do. It's a way to uncover our natural talents that we have, such as striking up a conversation, seeing patterns in data, planning events. When we create the common language and focus on strengths based on the research of Clifton, we can also focus on developing the things we do naturally. So think about the strengths of the kids that end up getting sent to you. If they're sent to the office or, you know, whatever. Are they a leader? Are they persuasive? Are they helper? Are they social? Are they includer? And then having the kids really think about their strengths, because when you ask, especially a middle school or a high school student, what are you good at? They seem to struggle with that question. So another reason why we focus on strengths is, or the language of strengths, if students can better answer, students will be they'll be able to answer their job interview questions better if they know what their strengths are. Understanding their talents and strengths to apply for jobs that are of interest and connected to their SIV really just helps. If you get a minute, go ahead and click on the video and you can watch it. I think it's like 1 or 2 minutes long. but it also just shows why we focus on strengths.
And then the values piece, I kind of briefly talked about that. Just giving you an example. If you're a computer software developer, a computer engineer of some sort, also a farmer, both of these careers lead and have some high conventional traits and characteristics. So if what it comes down to in choosing a career is, what is your workplace value? Do you value more maybe working more individual, could be working from home in an office, possibly having to wear a suit, or you work more casually at home? Or do you really want to enjoy, like a farmer, outdoor, kind of unpredicted schedule? You work sun up to sundown, you're going to get dirty, you're going to have new experiences. So that's where the difference in the values comes in place. You have very similar strengths and talents and interests, but what's the workplace value? And that's why we want students to understand that values piece, because that could really make the decision on which direction of their life they want to go.
So I mostly focus on working with the middle school. My one school is a K-8 school, but I'm more the middle school counselor. And then I work at Bostonia Global High School, which is the one high school we have in our district. And so we already finished our first trimester. And so I have my list of at-risk students academically that are academically at risk. And instead of having our academic review like I normally do, I'm changing the conversation with this worksheet. And when you get the slides, you'll see on that it's a hyperlink. So when you click onto it, you'll see all the different 5 sheets that Melanie helped create. And I use that in with the slides on the other slide, and I go over the slides with the students. So we look at all the different RIASEC letters if they don't already know. Our kids have been exposed to RIASEC pretty consistently. So if they've been our student for a while, they already know their letters. But like Melanie said, things have changed. The pandemic's changed. Their letters probably changed. So I go over this sheet with them. And so if you see, I think this interest is like page 3 on the worksheets. And so this is just a conversation starter with you. How do you talk about their interests? And then how do you talk about their strengths? And how do you talk about their values? And then what are the letters that they claim? And what are the letters that they received? Because sometimes the letters they got isn't what they claim. And so why do we claim these letters? And what do we see about ourselves? So it's very reflective. And that's the SEL component, is it's very about them and who they are and who they're developing as a human. So it's a great way to change the conversation of like, hey, by the way, you're failing your classes, to, hey, how do we connect you to school? How do we get you to see the value of school? Why are we doing the class? Why are you in these classes? Why are we studying these things? So that's the way that I'm starting these conversations with my students. You can use this in a classroom guidance lesson, or you can use this in a small group, or you could do this individually, which I love about this because you can use it in any way that you conduct your counseling. And then Janet also does elementary counseling ideas, which she's amazing, and she will share those.
Oh, so I first have to say that I'm just super excited to be here talking about this as an elementary school counselor. I was a high school counselor for a really long time and a middle school counselor, and college and career is a really big part of my why I wanted to be a counselor. So I was a little hesitant and a little worried about moving to elementary school because I thought I might be missing out on that piece. So I've just really been very pleased, very excited to be able to do this work with elementary school students, and knowing that it can start at this young age, I think is really cool. So I brought a couple of things that I do with my kids at an elementary school level, but I also feel like they translate to middle school and also could be used at the high school level as well. So I think they're pretty versatile. And I do know that as counselors, we have so many things on our plate, especially right now with everything going on. So the examples of activities that I brought, I found to be pretty simple and quick to implement. whether it's school-wide or a classroom or group setting. So Melanie was talking about how our kids here in Cajon Valley, where we work, they all know their RIASET codes. So it's easy for me to go into a classroom, jump right into a lesson, sprinkle them in and integrate the codes. But it hasn't always been that way. So when we first started the world of work, it was kind of, things were just kind of rolling out. It was a little bit hit or miss, who knew them and who didn't know them. So these are some things that I was able to start prior to our full implementation. So I think they would probably work for you guys as well. So I think if we could, we have it up. Okay, cool. So I think that the University of Buffalo videos are awesome. And then there's a couple of slides on here that literally just give a snapshot of the RIASET codes. So you could probably do one of those things with your kids and then jump right into either of these activities. I think that would work really well. So the first one is our leadership team's application. And this application is an example of an activity that helps students start to think about their strengths, what they're interested in, but also from a lens of how can they use those strengths to work together with others and to better their communities. So we shared, we started with our leadership council, which some of you may have that middle school, high school, elementary level. And our kids, they wanted to jump in and help out. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they wanted to belong, they wanted to find their place in the school. And so some of my leaders came to me and said, man, can we have more people on the leadership council? How can we do that? So it was kind of born out of an idea that the kids came up with. So I was like, yeah, if kids want to get in there and help make their school a better place, like, let's do it. How can we do it? So this application was originally created by a team of our leaders here at school. So we sat down, created this application, kind of figured out how to make it work. And so I thought it was really cool that the leaders were able to create this. And I just love watching what kids can do when you give them the reins and when we're focusing on their strengths and the things that they're good at, the things they value, the things they're interested in. It's been pretty incredible to see the things they'll do. I don't know, am I able to click on the link, or Melanie, would you be able to click on the leadership app? I just want to show the snapshot of it. So it's super simple application. We started with 1 or 2 teams, then we kind of built from there. And the kids, it's easy, so they write their name, they write their RIASET codes. And when we first started, like I was saying, all the kids didn't know their RIASET codes right offhand. So we actually had our leaders go out with the RIASET codes. So they had just we have like what you can see in Melanie's background, those little posters they held up, but you could just make your own or kind of write them on a sheet. And then they just kind of listed out some of the characteristics of each of the codes. And so that helped kids kind of figure out how to self-identify. And then they wrote about their strengths. What are some things that they felt like they could do to help to make this school a better place, make other kids feel welcome. And then if you scroll all the way down, eventually we got to the point where we took all our teams and we listed out the different job duties. And next to those, we listed RIASET codes, which is kind of a cool way to help kids see that on every team, we need all of the interests. Like, we need several different strengths. So my favorite team to talk about is our pump team. And it's just, the pump team is literally just kids go out and pump up balls at recess. And they make sure that all the equipment is organized and looking nice. But they take it so seriously. And so they came up with a whole system. So our conventional kids, they created a little list where you made a tally mark for every time you pumped up a ball. And when it got to the 5th time, the ball goes here, so we had those kids. And then we had the other kids running out, more of our social kids, like, hey, I see your ball's flat. Let me take that for you, like the helpers. And so it's been really cool to see them kind of step into these roles, but also be connecting them to their strengths and the things they're good at. And then the other, my second favorite team is we call it the traffic squad. And what is pretty cool about this team is that the kids are out there. It's kind of like in the morning and in the afternoon, they're just holding signs that say drive safe, during drop off and things like that. But this has been a big piece that's really helped increase our attendance here at my school. So I will kind of sneakily guide a kid towards, okay, we have this opening, but it's only, it's first thing in the morning and you have to be there at this time. So I've actually had parents where I've called them and, to congratulate their kid, hey, they've been doing so well with attendance. They've really improved. And they've said, you know what, he's hustling us out the door in the morning because he's got to get to traffic squad and he's super excited about it. So I think just the value of like these teams creating, they've increased our attendance. I've seen increased self-esteem in our kids. They feel like they have a place where they belong. They're doing something really important and they're learning teamwork all together. So that's kind of the first one. And then the next one is a vision board activity. So I think, oh yeah, there it is. Okay. So this is one that I use to help students start to think about their strengths, interests, and then use those to set goals. So this activity can be done on paper, but I think that middle school and high school and upper elementary do really well with being able to just make a quick copy of it. And then I do a little demo in class with them where I'm kind of dragging and dropping the different things in there, and they're able to incorporate their RISE set codes in these vision boards. So the cool thing about it is that they're looking at their strengths. So they're not just saying, here's my goal, and then they don't have a plan to, reach their goal. So this student example, so her goal was that she wanted to travel one day. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. Like, how are you going to travel? Like, what do you need to travel? And she's like, well, I guess I need some money, right? So in order to accomplish that goal, she chose a career of veterinary medicine. So you can kind of see that there. And she even uses, one of her RISE codes to explain how she'll accomplish the goal. So you can kind of see that there. I want to travel someday. I'll become a veterinarian so that I can make money to travel. I will use my eye to learn science and work hard. So it's kind of cool to see it come, all together in that way. And it's such a young age, like seeing them make a plan that's strengths-based is pretty neat. So I included one more after this just in case, because I've been doing a lot of digital stuff, but now that we're back in person, it's always nice to have a paper activity to do with kiddos. And I think this is actually my SDSU intern created this one. So I feel like you can do it with all ages. And it's kind of similar to the vision board, but it's more of an identity map. So it's, who am I? Your role in your family, your background, things that you value, your family and friends. So they were able to kind of just take those things and put them on this identity map. And then if it was on paper, they just wrote their RISE set codes in or kind of did a little drag and drop. And if you wanted to make this into like a vision board with a goal, they could add goals on there too. So just kind of one more idea for that. And it was super easy. I just found the outline online and printed it out, and that's all you need really. And I think there's one, oh, right. So this one is if you're looking for something, jumping back into the virtual world. I know that a lot of us, myself included, spent probably too much time creating virtual offices for students where you have, supports and resources and things that they can access. So this is just another idea. And this one is Melanie's, and I believe she even linked it for us. So you could probably click on that and just make a copy and go and switch it up to your own stuff, I think. But just another idea of a way to roll it out if you're doing more of a virtual office style with your kiddos.
All right, thank you, ladies. Great ideas. And so as we kind of near the end here, I'm just circling back to that Meet a Professional. We have a 4-level framework. We have the exploration, simulation, Meet a Pro, and practice. You see there, and it's highlighted the Meet a Pro. So our students, the exploration is really understanding their strengths, interests, values, and exploring the RIASEC. And then they do have simulations, and then also the Meet a Pro. And you don't have to do these in any sort of order, but the Meet a Pro is done. We use the NEPRIS app, the NEPRIS platform. But like I said, because Zoom has become such a natural thing for many of us, if you can I get friends. I've had my husband join to do a NEPRIS chat because at first when we got this going, he's a carpenter. So he went out into his work shed. The students zoomed in. My daughter was on the other end in the TK class, so it was really cool. And the students get to ask questions. And I think that's where the most powerful is, when it's kind of live. But like I said, if you have parents that can come into classrooms, you have your career days, it's just really important that they can see that future self and ask the questions and understand, what is their role in their career, and students can reflect on that. So meeting the pro and getting a chance to practice. The practice comes more with your thinking middle school, high school, with intern or mentorships, community service, volunteerism, and even when they start to get jobs. And really, students, if they're going to go out and do a community service, it's probably best practice that they align it to their strengths, interests, values, so that they're doing something of interest to them, so that it's more meaningful, more practical, and perhaps even using it as a job experience that they could speak of when they go for their interviews or when they write a resume, that they had, I volunteered at the animal shelter, and they're going to maybe go be a vet tech or trying to get into something that's more in the animal field. It's really important that they can kind of track that I did this according to what I'm interested in. So looking at that, that's kind of the level 4 practice. And then I'm going to skip real quick. This is a student of mine. He did all 4 levels. So we had, like I said, we did the park naturalist, and the simulation was the students had to create the virtual tour of a national park. And so they researched, studied, and they became like the park naturalist for a few weeks. And this was the day that they were going to share their projects. And we turned the classroom into the national park headquarters in Washington, D.C. So when they came to school, I told them Friday, Monday, you're coming to work. We're going to be in Washington, D.C. We're going to have booths. The public's going to come out and visit all your booths and learn about your project or your national park to decide what park they want to go to. So they all had their little booth set up. Well, this young man, Sammy, came to school. The kids were all chatting in the line and whispering. So, as a teacher, you think something's going on. So I kind of said, what's going on? And there he was standing in a suit. And I said, wow, you look very handsome. What's the occasion? He said, Mrs. Brandt, you said we had special guests coming. So I dressed up. So of course I ran to the classroom. We Googled real quick, who's the head of this, park naturalist system or the national parks. And sure enough, it is called a superintendent, national park superintendent. The gentleman in the picture was in a suit. And I said, okay, your role today is you're going to introduce our guests as the superintendent of the national parks. Let them know how it's going to work today. They're going to visit all the booths. At the end, they can buy like 2-for-1 discounted tickets. Like we had this whole information booth thing happening. So we said, okay, great. So it was a great little thing. We made a name tag. It said Superintendent Sammy, and in walked our own school superintendent, Dr. Miyashiro. They started talking and connected on. They had the exact same RIASEC codes. They were social, enterprising, artistic. And so, of course, he introduced himself as the park superintendent, and Dr. Miyashiro explained he was the school superintendent. So Sammy, through meeting him and talking with him, realized that there's a career as a school superintendent. And when he left that day, our superintendent left, Sammy came up and he said, Mrs. Brandt, I want to be a school superintendent. And so he got to go and shadow our Dr. Miyashiro one day. And so you can see that the whole future self, I being an educator, did not know what a superintendent was until I probably started teaching and got hired. And this young 10-year-old wants to pursue and be a superintendent. And I spoke in front of a bunch of superintendents recently and had them raise their hand. How many of you at 10 years old wanted to be a superintendent? And as you would know, not one of them raised their hand because you don't really have that exposure. So he went through all those levels. He explored his RIASEC, he simulated a career, he met the professional, and then here, just a snippet of his day, he's going to practice. So I'll play this right now.
Hi, my name is Sammy and I'm from Rios, and today I'm going to be shadowing Dr. Miyashiro, doing a level 4 simulation, and we're going to go check out the world of work at Greenfield Middle School. Dr. Miyashiro is teaching me how to be a superintendent because my future career that I wanted to be is a superintendent, and we have the same RIASEC code.
So you can kind of see how he now has a future possible self. And Sammy's now in 8th grade at our middle school. We kind of check in with him. Our superintendent went and had him come down to the district office at the end of last year and tour all the facilities down here. And he still continues to want to be a superintendent. So I did the math, and I will be here still, and he will be my boss someday. So I'll have a few years left when he makes it to that level. And again, the human process, as his teacher, I talked about, okay, so here's what you have to do to become that. Go to finish high school, go to college, get your bachelor's, teaching credential, start teaching, get a master's, perhaps get your doctorate, continue going to administration. And so at that conversation piece, now that he has, some steps and goals with the end in mind being that he wants to be a school superintendent. So never know, he's a first generation young man in this, in the United States in his family, but he strives to be a school superintendent. So just kind of came full circle, our little Sammy there. So we are shortly getting out of time a little bit. We have about 5 minutes left. We hope that you have some materials to run with after today. We are definitely very accessible. We're on Twitter, but also just email us if there's if a link didn't work or you want more information. We definitely can touch base and give you information and more resources if you need it. We feel we want this in all schools and for students, whether it is a roll to work program or you just take some of the materials we shared today and infuse it in your practice so that all our students have the best hope for their future selves. So we really appreciate you taking time today to join us.
Awesome. Thank you, Melanie, Madalyn, and Janet. We appreciate your presentation and all of the awesome materials that you're sharing with us. If you're logged into Whova, you can see that you're starting to receive some kudos and thank yous, and thank you for the resources. So thank you once again for your presentations, and thank you to everyone who attended for their participation. Hopefully you all had a wonderful counselor conference. So thank you.
And thank you all for what you do out there. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, Madalyn and Janet.